It begins innocently enough: yesterday's meal wrapped neatly in the fridge, a quick spin in the microwave, and lunch is served. But beneath this simple act lies a quiet danger, especially for older adults. In fact, the way we treat our leftovers could be undermining our health without us ever suspecting it. You may think that reheating food is a harmless convenience, but if you're over 60, this habit could be silently triggering inflammation, weakening your immunity, and even accelerating memory decline. Let's be blunt. Aging bodies are not as resilient as they once were. Our digestive fire weakens, our circulation slows, and our ability to process complex food compounds diminishes. What may be safe or at least tolerable for someone in their 30s may subtly sabotage the well-being of someone in their 70s. That's the hard truth. Even more concerning is that many of these changes don't come with fireworks or obvious symptoms. There's no sudden alarm bell when the nutrients in your reheated food degrade. No red flag when proteins mutate into harder-to-digest forms. No warning when fats quietly oxidize, forming compounds that harm your arteries. Instead, the consequences appear slowly: fatigue that lingers all afternoon, stiffness that creeps into your joints, memory fog that becomes harder to shake. According to a report from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, certain reheated foods can trigger biochemical reactions that are particularly dangerous for the elderly, contributing to systemic inflammation and oxidative stress. Yet this topic is barely discussed. In senior living centers, I've seen countless residents suffer from digestive issues, unexplained fatigue, or recurring joint pain, only to discover that part of the problem stemmed from their reheated meals. So today we're going to change that. In this article, I will walk you through 3 foods you should absolutely never reheat if you're serious about protecting your health in later life, and 3 foods that actually become more beneficial when reheated the right way. These are not guesses or internet trends. They are grounded in science, guided by clinical experience, and backed by stories of real people reclaiming their vitality one meal at a time. Because every bite matters, especially after 60. Part I: the foods you should be reheating as we age. The goal isn't just to eat, but to eat in a way that nourishes our strength, preserves our independence, and enhances how we feel each day. The 3 foods below, when reheated properly, become more than just leftovers. They become tools for healing. 1. Oatmeal. The morning ritual that strengthens the gut and brain. There's something deeply comforting about oatmeal. For seniors, that comfort is more than emotional, it's physiological. Oatmeal, particularly when cooked, cooled, and then gently reheated, undergoes a transformation that makes it even more valuable to an aging digestive system. The magic lies in resistant starch. When oats are first cooked and then allowed to cool, some of their carbohydrates realign into a structure that resists digestion in the small intestine. These resistant starches travel to the colon, where they act as fuel for beneficial gut bacteria. This fermentation process produces short-chain fatty acids that strengthen the intestinal wall, reduce inflammation, and improve nutrient absorption. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Gerontology found that seniors who consumed meals rich in resistant starch experienced lower post-meal glucose spikes and improved microbiome diversity, both essential for metabolic and immune health. Reheated oatmeal offers a slow, steady release of energy without the sugar crash typical of many processed breakfast options. Beyond digestion, oatmeal contains a potent soluble fiber called beta-glucan, which binds to LDL cholesterol in the digestive tract and helps flush it from the body. This fiber has been shown to reduce the risk of cardiovascular events in adults over 65, according to data from the British Heart Foundation. One of my longtime clients, a 68-year-old retired teacher named Helen, struggled for years with irregular bowel movements and fluctuating blood sugar. We introduced a routine of making steel-cut oats in large batches, refrigerating them overnight, and reheating them in the morning with a splash of almond milk and blueberries. Within 6 weeks, Helen reported improved energy, less bloating, and better sleep benefits that came from a food she had nearly given up on. Reheated oatmeal isn't just breakfast, it's therapy for your gut, fuel for your heart, and a shield for your brain. 2. Vegetable soup, a warm shield against inflammation and fatigue. In the colder months or even during quiet afternoons, a bowl of vegetable soup does more than satisfy. It heals. And when it's reheated, it often becomes even more potent. Here's why. When vegetables like carrots, onions, kale, garlic, and sweet potatoes are simmered, their fibers break down, releasing antioxidants and phytonutrients into the broth. This process continues as the soup cools and is reheated, creating a nutrient-rich elixir that's easy to digest even for those with weakened stomach acid or dental challenges. In practice, I've seen many elderly patients turn to vegetable soups when their appetite declined. One gentleman, 75-year-old Arthur, struggled to eat solid meals after recovering from pneumonia. His daughter began preparing homemade soup filled with turmeric, garlic, and leafy greens, reheating small portions throughout the week. Arthur regained his strength steadily, his appetite returned, and his blood pressure improved without medication adjustments. This is no coincidence. Research from the European Journal of Nutrition shows that warm vegetable-based meals reduce markers of C-reactive protein, a key indicator of inflammation in older adults. Inflammation, if left unchecked, plays a major role in the development of arthritis, heart disease, and even dementia. And let's not ignore the emotional nourishment soup provides. The smell of herbs, the warmth of the bowl in your hands, the steam rising toward your face, it connects us to memories, to moments of care, and to a sense of being grounded in our body. If you reheat just one food this week, let it be a pot of homemade vegetable soup. Your joints, your immunity, and your heart will thank you. 3. Brown rice, the unsung hero of blood sugar and bone health. In a world obsessed with low-carb diets, brown rice often gets overlooked. But for older adults, it may be one of the best staples to embrace, especially when reheated correctly. Unlike white rice, brown rice retains its bran and germ layers, providing essential nutrients like magnesium, selenium, and B vitamins. When cooked and cooled, it too forms resistant starch. But the secret lies in the reheating. When warmed gently with a bit of water or steamed briefly, the rice becomes easier to digest and maintains its nutritional profile. Magnesium in particular is a mineral frequently lacking in seniors, despite its vital role in nerve function, blood pressure regulation, and muscle relaxation. Night cramps, restless legs, and poor sleep are often signs of magnesium deficiency issues that can be mitigated with consistent intake from sources like brown rice. A senior couple I worked with, Peter and Joan, both in their early 70s, had vastly different health profiles. Peter suffered from mild neuropathy and Joan from borderline hypertension. They began incorporating reheated brown rice into their dinners 3 to 4 times per week, paired with lentils and steamed vegetables. Over several months, Peter's nerve discomfort reduced, and Joan's blood pressure readings improved. Their story reflects what nutrition science continues to confirm: food synergy, especially in simple forms, is deeply therapeutic. Brown rice doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention, but it provides consistent foundational support for the systems that matter most in later life: muscle integrity, metabolic stability, and cardiovascular resilience. Part 2. The foods you should never reheat. While certain foods grow in nutritional value or maintain stability when reheated, others undergo dangerous transformations. For seniors, these changes can lead to digestive issues, inflammation, circulatory strain, and cognitive disturbance, all from something as routine as pressing the start button on a microwave. Let's examine 3 foods that seem harmless, but when reheated can quietly erode your health, particularly as your body becomes more sensitive with age. 1. Cooked mushrooms. The silent gut disruptor. Mushrooms are often celebrated for their antioxidant power, immune-boosting properties, and low-calorie content. They feature prominently in health-conscious meals and are popular in plant-forward diets. But their value depends on how they're handled, especially after cooking. Mushrooms contain proteins and amino acids that are beneficial when fresh and lightly cooked. However, these structures are highly sensitive to heat and oxygen. Upon initial cooking, their proteins denature into a digestible form. But when cooled and reheated, especially at high temperatures, they undergo further chemical alterations, forming compounds that are far more difficult to digest. This is not a mild concern. The elderly digestive system, already weakened by lower stomach acid and reduced enzyme activity, is particularly vulnerable to these altered proteins. The result: bloating, nausea, indigestion, and fatigue that seems unrelated to food, but is in fact directly tied to how the mushrooms were prepared. A larger risk lies in bacterial overgrowth. Mushrooms sautéed in butter or oil and then stored improperly, such as left at room temperature or in a warm kitchen, create a moist, protein-rich environment where dangerous bacteria like Clostridium, botulinum, and Listeria monocytogenes can flourish. These pathogens are especially harmful to seniors with compromised immunity. According to data from the CDC, adults over 65 represent more than half of all hospitalizations related to Listeria infections. A retired nurse I once consulted with, 74-year-old Margaret, had recurring digestive discomfort that was misattributed to irritable bowel syndrome. When we reviewed her dietary habits, one pattern emerged clearly. She frequently reheated sautéed mushrooms prepared in bulk. Once she stopped, her symptoms began to fade. What she thought was a chronic illness turned out to be a food handling error repeated daily. Mushrooms are a nourishing, healing food, but only when eaten fresh and properly stored. For seniors, the risks of reheating them are simply not worth the convenience. 2. Eggs. From brain food to biological burden. Eggs are nutritional powerhouses rich in choline, vitamin D, and high-quality protein. They support cognitive health, bone strength, and muscle maintenance. However, their benefits are best received when they are freshly cooked and consumed immediately. When eggs are reheated, particularly those that have been fried or scrambled with oils, their fats and cholesterol are exposed to oxidation. This process generates harmful compounds, including lipid peroxides and advanced glycation end products, ages which are directly linked to inflammation and arterial damage. For aging individuals managing high blood pressure or cholesterol, this is more than a theoretical concern. Oxidized fats contribute to plaque buildup in arteries, increase oxidative stress in brain tissue, and compromise mitochondrial function, essential for memory balance and energy. One widely referenced study in food and chemical toxicology confirmed that repeated heating of egg yolks at high temperatures significantly increased their lipid peroxidation index, a key marker of cellular toxicity. And while a young, healthy body might tolerate occasional exposure to such compounds, an older adult system may respond with digestive discomfort, mental fog, or chronic fatigue. I recall an 80-year-old man named Walter who prided himself on his frugality and would often store leftover scrambled eggs for reuse. Over time, he experienced persistent indigestion and loss of appetite. After eliminating reheated eggs and switching to freshly poached alternatives, his appetite returned and his afternoon energy stabilized. Eggs are a gift when fresh, but a burden when oxidized. Treat them with the respect they deserve, and they will return the favor. 3. White potatoes. The comfort food that turns against you. Few foods feel as nostalgic and satisfying as a serving of mashed potatoes. For many older adults, white potatoes symbolize home-cooked warmth, family gatherings, and simple pleasures. But beneath that comfort lies a potential metabolic trap. When white potatoes are freshly cooked, they are already high on the glycemic index. This means they break down rapidly into sugars, causing blood glucose spikes. This in itself can be challenging for seniors dealing with insulin resistance, but the risk amplifies dramatically when those potatoes are cooled and then reheated. The reheating process, particularly in buttercream or oil, alters the starch structure in a way that enhances insulin resistance. It also encourages the formation of acrylamides compounds associated with inflammation and vascular damage. Moreover, when these potato dishes are microwaved in plastic containers, chemicals such as bisphenol A, BPA can leach into the food, disrupting hormonal function and raising cardiovascular risk. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that seniors exposed to frequent high glycemic reheated meals had a 28% greater incidence of postprandial fatigue, numbness in extremities, and inflammatory markers like interleukin-6 associated with joint stiffness and cognitive decline. A woman I worked with named Gloria, age 77, had been reheating potato casseroles every evening as a comfort food. She noticed increased swelling in her ankles, poor circulation in her feet, and restless sleep. After removing reheated potatoes from her meal plan and replacing them with sweet potatoes or brown rice, her symptoms noticeably improved. White potatoes are not inherently harmful, but when treated carelessly, especially with repeated reheating, they become a hidden danger. If comfort food is what you seek, look to options that comfort the body and protect it. Small choices, powerful consequences. In the journey of aging, there's rarely one dramatic moment where health turns. More often, it's the quiet accumulation of daily decisions that shapes the quality of our later years. What you choose to put on your plate, especially from the fridge or microwave, can mean the difference between fatigue and vitality, stiffness and freedom, confusion and clarity. As we've seen, foods like oatmeal, vegetable soup, and brown rice can be powerful allies when reheated properly. They support digestive health, stabilize energy, and nourish critical systems like the heart and brain. Reheating them is not just safe, it can be beneficial, unlocking resistant starches and amplifying absorption of key nutrients. On the other hand, mushrooms, eggs, and white potatoes can become dietary liabilities when reheated. They may foster inflammation, introduce oxidized fats, or quietly impair blood sugar control. For seniors whose bodies are more sensitive to such internal stressors, These risks can accumulate rapidly, leading to symptoms that are often misattributed to just aging. There is wisdom in knowing the difference. In fact, this knowledge is a form of self-care. If you're someone who values longevity, independence, and clarity in your later years, then your leftovers deserve as much thought as your fresh meals. Ask yourself, is this food still nourishing me after its second life? Is this choice building strength or slowly chipping away at it? When we treat our meals with intention, even something as routine as reheating can become an act of resilience. Not through radical changes or expensive interventions, but through quiet, informed decisions that honor the body we've lived in for decades. If you found this article enlightening or empowering, we invite you to become part of a community that values wisdom, wellness, and strength at every age. Subscribe to the Longevity Secret channel for more insights, expert advice, and practical tools to help you thrive one choice, one meal, and one day at a time. And don't forget to share this with someone you care about who might be making the same small mistakes without realizing the long-term cost. Your health is your legacy. Let's protect it together.